Hi, welcome to the Art Life video blog, day 82, with Jacob Lone Wolf. My name is Philip Kunz.
My name is Jacob Wolf. Thank you, Philip.
My pleasure, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here. Today I'm here in Philip's and your wife's lovely home and in your studio. You've been very hospitable. And
thank you. My pleasure.
Bought me a beer. We met before, hung out a little bit, and now we're here having a couple beers.
Talking about the art.
Yes, sir.
God bless artists. Well, it's my pleasure because, as I was telling you, Jacob, the visual arts, I feel, in Portland are a little underrepresented. And your efforts with your video blog and your gallery and your community, deeply appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That means the world to me.
I'm probably one of the older artists that you've been interviewing.
We've interviewed a couple older gentlemen.
Good.
But yeah, it's great that it's not just artists my age. It's not just up-and-comers. It's veterans like yourself who can teach the young guys like me.
I don't know what I have to teach, but I know I can't help but doing it. I've been making art for 30 plus years. You know, I have no idea where it came from. It just, you know, there was no other choice. I went in the Army. When I got back from the Army, I went to art school, and it's been, you know, haven't made any money off it, but made a good lifestyle, you know, doing it. And
was there something that drew you to the art lifestyle? Was there artists' work that you really admired, or?
Well, I can't consciously say that I ever said, you know, I'm going to be an artist. It was just when it came time to go to college, I enrolled in an art program. I went out to an art school, you know, and then I've always followed artists, Henry Moore, Pablo Picasso, you know, that generation of artists were the ones we had to study. My first college professor was into abstract expressionism, said it was the be-all and end-all, the gestalt of all art, you know. And so, you know, that's the tradition I come from, and I have no idea, you know, no one chooses deliberately, I don't think. I think I'll be an artist, you know. It's just, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself.
Had to create.
And so, you know, after all the training, you have to do all the stuff that you have to do to learn. I picked sculpture. So I actually began in sculpture.
Wow.
And then, you know, that takes a lot of room and a lot of, you know, big studio space.
Do you still have any, like, sculpture work that you...
Nah, I got pictures, but, you know, not so much the objects, because my wife went into the Navy and we moved around for 22 years, and so every move would mean I'd have to leave something behind and leave something behind, and you know, little by little I started moving from sculpture into, you know, drawing and painting and the stuff I'm doing now. And I've been trying to think of just when it was that the female human figure became the thing for me. I know it was back in Montana, but...
I know I've always been attracted to the female human figure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I can't see any other image or genre that carries for me the weight that you know, the female human figure does.
There's tons of symbolism behind it. There's a lot of meaning and emotion and love, hate, even.
Archetypes. You know, it carries many, many archetypes, from the, you know, the chaste virgin to the, you know, sexuality to, you know, alienation and loneliness. You know, it just works on so many levels. Plus, it gives you this great, like, coat hanger on which to develop your skills. You know, rendering. When I went to college, learning how to draw was very important. We had to learn how to draw. We actually had to learn how to draw, you know. So that's where I came from. A lot of life studies. a lot of color theory, a lot of, you know, hours and hours and hours rendering the figure, you know. Even in sculpture, some of my earliest sculptures were, you know, the female form. And so I've been carrying that, you know, I've been working with that for 20 plus years. What do you do with the female figure? You know, how can I use it to carry my content, you know? And it's become very, you know, deeply personal and deeply archetypal. You know, I'm big, I love archetypal psychology, and so it's really big on how that stands in for like some artistic persona or some part of me that can't find any other way to communicate except through that image.
How does your wife react to your art?
Well, when we first began, it was, you know, she was really confused by it, you know. You're going to get a job, aren't you? You know? So, and then, you know, there have been periods in my career, especially when we lived in Japan, I probably devoted 10 years to using her, I'm going to say iconography, her image, to stand in for the female, you know. And it meant more than just, you know, this is my wife Judy. There were parts of it with this is my wife Judy, but I used her image as, you know, the vehicle. Well, not always to her satisfaction. Some of them she'd be like, you know, no, that's not me. You know, what are you? Like, I know it's not you. It's, you know, it's you're standing in for another idea. You know.
Right on.
You know. And
so she wasn't even necessarily your muse. She was just your model.
Well, a little bit of both, but one of the things that she would be concerned about is, you know, are you portraying me in a way that I'm not? Are you portraying me doing things that I wouldn't do? And I had to tell her that, you know, I'm just using your imagery to stand in for this template, you know.
Right.
And I'd modify her and, you know, the imagery, you know. And I'm quite, you know, I feel quite pleased with some of the paintings that came out of there, out of that period. Some wonderful, wonderful, gorgeous paintings. You know, she's a beautiful woman, so she's a perfect muse. You know, perfect. You know, but in response to what you were saying, it's you know, she's not always been comfortable with some some of the imagery.
Right.
You know. When we were up in Butte, Montana, I'm from Butte, Montana. Judy's from Great Falls. I was doing this series. They were like 12 feet tall, maybe 3.5 feet wide. These huge, tall, naked women. So in the gallery during the show, when you'd walk in, your face would be right at crotch level. You know, because they were huge. They were 12 feet tall. So that was one of the ones where she said, you know, is this really what you want people to be seeing? I was like, well, honey, you just got to go with the flow. You know, it's like, you know, Layla, you know, or something, you know. It's about you, but it's not really about you, you know. So it's been fun. But, you know, I was saying to you earlier that one of the elements of my art that's been so critical is it costs so much to make art that young artists and artists that are, you know, devoted to it, you have to find some economic way to do it. And so for me, it's always been cheap house paint, cheap canvas, cheap paper, cheap printing processes, you know, scavenged materials, tons of dumpster diving, tons of, you know, whatever it takes to make it. Well, that's kind of a mixed bag, you know. You learn a lot about materials, but, you know, it's not always sellable, you know, in the art, the commodities that is the art world. So you balance between that, But that's really determined a lot of how my art is the way it is. Just like even printing, that I can't afford full color prints. And so my line quality and my drawing would go down to what's the cheapest what's the least amount of ink I can make this beautiful line, because you know, black ink's expensive. And so that's really been a huge part of how my art looks the way it is. You know, you go to Home Depot and you get, you know, the reject paint. You get it for $1 or something. Well, that would become the color I use. Seriously, because, you know, Grumbacher or those, you know, those fancy, you know, Newtons or whatever, they're too expensive. I don't have it, you know, don't have it. So it became, you know, what's the economical, affordable way that I can make my art? And that persists even today. That, you know, that drives a lot of what I'll choose to do, because I mean, it'd be nice someday to, you know, win the lottery and be able to say, oh, you want that printed? I want it printed. But it don't work that way.
It sure doesn't. I would really like to win the lottery. I still have 3 lottery tickets at home on my fridge from because there was that big.
I know, the $350 million.
Yeah, but I never took them in and checked them.
Trust me, you'd know if you won.
I would.
They'd be all over you.
Yeah, I would really hope that I won, but it's not logic or not probable. Not probable.
So I did undergraduate work in Hawaii, and I don't know if you know who. I'm going to do a lot of name dropping because you're a video. But Marisol Escobar, she did wonderful sculptress. She did these amazing, you know, like installation figurative pieces with odd pieces of wood and that. But I had her for a drawing class, which was amazing. And, you know, so this is in the sculptural days. And then this, one of the local teachers, just based on his name, but another wonderful man that taught me a lot about, you know, casting bronze and working with bronze and that.
Wow.
And then we moved to Chicago, where
is sculpting something that you would like to get back into?
If
you had the money
and
the space. And
yeah.
Is that still where your heart lies, or do you think that changed?
Mainly the figure.
The figure.
Yeah. It changed, definitely. That it used to be very sculptural. You know, the pieces I was doing when I first started out were, you know, huge and ambitious and you know, trying to all over the place, trying to, you know, say everything all at once, you know. And then once I discovered the female figure, it became more about what works best for this idea or for this thing. But I just, you know, look, I have no space and you know, have no money and plus times have changed, you know. So
sorry, you said you moved to Chicago,
where I did my graduate work.
Okay.
For my MFA. I have an MFA from the University of Chicago. And that was a fantastic experience, you know. I met so many amazing artists and participated in so many cool things, you know. Openings and discussions and panel discussions and you know, the art scene there. And I suppose to a degree that's still what I try to carry with me, because it was such a fun, neat time. And you know, graduate school is one of the best experiences for an artist, I think. You know, because you get access to venues that you couldn't on your own, you know, and you know, so I met John Baldessari and Peter Sheldall. He writes for the New York Times, but at that time, deconstructionism and Baudelaire, and that whole French movement of, you know, postmodernism and multiculturalism was coming in. You know, so my art experience spawns from very formal, you know, imitating nature, to this modernism, to postmodernism. You know, that's...
So you've got a lot of different angles.
Sometimes it hurts your head. You know, because look where it is. Like, you know, you're familiar with Jeff Kunz, who's probably the most hottest artist today in terms of what his pieces go for.